So why in the world would somebody pay 50% more for a property that was brand new versus something that was a couple years old? Well, that happens every day in Panama. And in this video, I'm going to explain a little bit about the differences between buying pre-construction, i.e. brand new, and buying resale. So I'm Kent. I've been doing this since 2007 in the Panama real estate business, and my company, Panama Equity, we've sold hundreds, if not thousands of properties, probably not 1,000 actually, but quite a few, both pre-construction and what they call here in Panama resale. So you drive down the street these days in April 2025 and you're gonna see cranes everywhere. New projects that are halfway, including a couple projects that don't really seem to be making a whole lot of progress. Well, let's talk about those kind of projects first. The good news is, in the city, at least in my experience over the last 15 years, you don't get a whole lot of projects that get up out of the ground and stop. What you do get, however, is a lot of projects that have a big flash bang marketing moment and then nothing. In some cases for a couple of years. And that's the worst experience ever if you are on the buying side of that. Now, I've definitely been on the buying side of some really long delays. So that is something you want to consider when purchasing pre-construction versus resale, which is, hey, what's the story with the developer? How well funded are they? And where do they need to get to start construction? Because once you start construction, you're good, generally, you being a developer in this case. Okay, so let's talk key differences between brand new and resale. I think in most markets around the world, usually, correct me if I'm wrong, to my 25 viewers out there on the internet, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand, typically in other parts of the world, pre-construction pricing generally is a little bit lower than existing. So it's like you're in a neighborhood and you see two buildings. One is a hole in the ground, one is a building that's, say, 4 or 5 years old, right? Usually the building that's a hole in the ground is got condos for sale that are a little bit cheaper than an existing property, right? Because, hey, you're taking a risk, you're gonna have to wait. The hope is that, well, that property, then you're buying ahead of the market. Not so in Panama. Why is that? Well, it's kind of interesting. Here in Panama, and I think again around the world, when you buy pre-construction, you essentially are, number one, taking a bet with a developer that they're going to build, right? And number two, you're kind of baking in some financing, interest-free, while the property is being built, right? However, you don't get to use that property, obviously, while it's getting built. But a lot of people buy today for a property in 4 years, and that allows them 4 years to essentially start paying off the property. Let's talk about costs and values here for a second. So typically, equity, right? The amount of cash that you put down. When you buy a resale, usually it's, okay, I'm gonna buy this property. Let's say you don't use a mortgage, right? It's 100% equity. You're putting down 10 to 20% when you agree to promise to purchase, and then closing might be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. We've got other videos on why closings take a long time in Panama, but let's just say that's the case, right? 100% equity versus, all right, cool. I want apartment number 47A that's gonna be done in 2030, right? So like you're hoping it's done in 2030, but typically with a developer, it's about 10% down. Maybe the next 20% you have 24 months to pay, and then you got to come up with the balance at the end. So why would somebody pay? Well, let me tell you the difference in prices now, okay? So that same scenario in, I don't know, New York, DC, whatever, you might get a 10% discount when you're buying something pre-construction, right? This thing is for $500,000, this thing is for $450,000. Sweet, I'm gonna get that one. Not the case in Panama. It's the other way around. Sorry, a lot of head explosions today. So pre-construction right now in Panama, and even historically, is generally the highest priced real estate in all the city You've got a couple really, really high-end projects in like Santa Maria, for example, Costa del Este, even Casco Viejo, pushing the limit on price per square meter, price per square foot of like $6,000-$7,000, right? Per square meter. So that's, I don't know, $500 to $600 a square foot for something that's not even built yet, right? And of course, every developer is going to tell you, oh yeah, you know, you're buying now, but the price is going to be like, you're going to be able to resell it for more. Sad secret. For the last 15 years, generally pre-construction has been a depreciating asset. Why is that? Well, because of what I just said. Usually pre-construction is the highest until it's done. And then you lose all the buyers who appreciate being able to, say, slowly pay for something, right? Because they don't need it yet. They can wait. That market is gone. Once you got resales, you can't necessarily buy in installments. I mean, you can if you find a seller financing. That's another attractive thing about pre-construction is you will get some of these developers willing to finance, and banks, depending on where you're from, US, Canada, Europe, if you don't really have a big track record here, you have to pay an extra 1%. If you can get financing, that's called the FESI. So it's an extra 1% if a bank will give you traditional bank financing towards the purchase of either pre-construction or resale if you're a foreigner. But I don't want to get too off topic here, the difference between pre-construction and resale. So first big difference is cost. Typically pre-construction is anywhere from 10 to as much as 30% more expensive than equivalent resale. Sometimes twice as expensive. Now, that's comparing apples to grapes, right? In my neighborhood, for example, El Cangrejo, I'm in a 20-year-old building because I'm a value guy, okay? Granted, we are looking at some newer stuff as our family expands. But having said that, we've got my 20-year-old building, right? Which is, gee whiz, if I were to sell right now, probably 1,200 a square meter-ish. Versus brand new construction right in front of us, 3,000 a square meter. What's the difference? Well, amenities, for sure. I mean, our building has a pool and a pool. We also have security and parking and all that kind of standard stuff, but that's it. No gym, no kids area, no massage area, no atelier, no speakeasy, no saltwater and mineral dipping pool, no massage areas. There are some awesome buildings in Panama, and the newest ones have the coolest amenities. So you're going to pay for that in the form of price per square meter. So apples to grapes, right? But my building and another building, huge discrepancy. And that's true all over the city. So cost, right? Amenities. Maybe that's number two. Number three is the ability to get financing from a developer while you are essentially not in pre-construction, but the financing kicks in once you owe them money, right? Once you owe them, once you get your keys. Developer financing sometimes can be competitive with banks. It's not going to be a whole lot more expensive in terms of your interest rate. However, your payments will be a lot higher because they don't like to extend long terms. There are a couple developers like Grupo Los Pueblos that will give you a 20-year loan. I think Bern was for a while too, but now they're down to like 5 years if I'm not mistaken. So you've got that, okay? Number two, or maybe we're on number four already. Track record, right? And I'm not trying to convince you either buy pre-construction or buy existing. I'm just trying to set y'all up to manage expectations, okay? You've got a brand new building versus a resale, right? Brand new building, developer is going to tell you all day long what you can rent it out for. And those numbers are going to be amazing. They're going to get you so excited to buy. You're not going to hit those numbers. We're a lot more conservative with the ROI and statements, expectations that we provide. Developer's not going to tell you about vacancy. Developer's not going to mention agent commissions unless you can find a guy to rent it for free. then yeah, you want to give that some thought, right? So it's like, okay, cool. I will take it with a grain of salt, whatever the developer tells me in terms of expectations. But if you're buying today and the property's not going to be done for 4 years, you can't reasonably expect any of those analyses to be correct, right? I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen in 4 years. We might have another pandemic. Panama might go crazy too, right? Rents might double, in which case, yes. Versus resales, hey, what's the comparison today, right? Why else do people even bother buying pre-construction? We talked about the amenities. We talked about the cash flow and kind of equity outlay in terms of having some time. Some people just like new properties, right? They like brand spanking new, new kitchens, new technology in terms of keyless entry, awesome amenities. Why else do people buy brand new? Banks tend to give a slightly better interest rate, not much, but for your mortgage, that's not necessarily relevant if you're a foreigner, because mortgages are kind of tricky to get here unless you've had some sort of banking relationship and a track record in Panama already. What are some other key differences? Oh, taxes. So you've got different thresholds in terms of property values and those windows, right? So from like, let's see, from 0 to 120,000, you are completely exempt on property taxes for like the first 20 years. And then like 120 to, I think it's 180, I'll publish the tax chart, but it's a sliding scale based on value, how long your property tax exoneration is good for, right? But once you hit 20 years in all these older buildings, you're going to pay taxes. So when you look at a resale property versus a pre-construction property, when you purchase pre-construction, automatically you are going to have the price that you pay as a registered value, right? That's just a given. Now, on resale properties, you have the potential to buy a property with the shares, right? So the seller owns the corporation. You do all your due diligence, make sure the corporation doesn't have any bank accounts, previous, business relationships, transactions, etc. If you buy the shares in that corporation, according to the public registry, the property does not change hands. Corporation still owns it. That guy just sold it to me. So it did change hands. However, corporation remained the owner. That's called a sale of shares, completely legal. And in that case, the old property value conveys. And that means that the old tax base also conveys. So that is, I would say, yet another advantage of buying a resale property versus pre-construction. Let's talk about the pre-construction kind of sales ebb and flow for a second. So generally in the first 3 to 6 months is when like promoters kind of just bend over backwards to make sure the world knows how awesome their project is, right? So they're going to be attending trade shows and doing broker events and just really all the bells and whistles, okay? And then sales, they go like that, and then they kind of plateau a little bit, and then they kind of sell a couple units a month type thing. That happens all the time. What's important for you as a buyer, and we've talked about this before, is to understand where they're at in terms of bank requirements and pre-sales. Because for a bank to give them money to start throwing dirt, typically they need between 30 and 40% pre-sold. So you're an early buyer, yay, I just got a friends and family deal. Take a look at the second price list. There's generally not a whole lot of difference between friends and family and a price list a year later, because that friends and family is a big push, right? And they've just spent a ton of money marketing. But if that doesn't get them over the hump of that 40% for them to start building, man, you're going to be sitting there waiting for them to get their 2, 3, 4 sales a month and get up to that threshold. Maybe you're fine to wait, right? Whatever. I'm not retiring for another 20 years. Take as long as you want. It just helps me save up. People like that. And that's why pre-construction sells, right? Okay, so we've covered this before, but maybe I'll say it again. Resale, you know what you're getting. Pre-construction is always brand new. So you've got certain things that a developer offers in terms of guarantees, right? So you just bought your property. What kind of warranties do they have? Some warranties are regulated by the law. Other warranties are a bit of a threshold in terms of what the developer is willing to give you. So it's like plumbing. All right, cool. 3 months. You have 3 months to file a warranty claim after the date that you are delivered your property. So before you get your property, you do a big walkthrough inspection, make sure everything looks awesome. You can get your plumbing, mechanical, electrical just sort of sussed out, right? Hardware, things like that, tiles that are not quite installed, it happens. And then the developer will offer certain guarantee periods for you to say, all right, cool, you know, it wasn't an issue when I got it, but now it is. Other things, that guarantee expires on that day, right? Because it's like, hey, tiles looked fine, or door hardware looked great when I gave you the property. I don't know what kind of parties you're throwing in there. So those expire. Versus resales, no guarantees, right? So you do kind of have that. However, brand new buildings, inevitably, kind of annoying to live in for the first 6 months to a year. I think there's some people on the internet have done a great job sort of documenting what you're going to go through when you first get a property. But like, it's like a kid, you know, I got 3 of them teething, right? It's just sort of like the building is working out its kinks. You got a lot of construction noise going around you as your neighbors kind of like either finish out their properties, developers finishing out their last few units. Yeah. What other differences are between pre-construction and resale? Oh boy. Yeah, just kind of knowing what you're getting. Track record in terms of, oh, here's one. Homeowners Association. Love to talk about that this last month. So this is crucial. If you end up buying in a pre-construction property, developer generally sits on the board, controls the board for the first 12 months. I think it's actually the law. And then they either hand it over to a third party, or in some cases they retain it. Pacific Hills is doing an amazing project. Oh my God, this is what inspired this video today. They are getting ready to build a second tower right next to a wildly successful first tower. Ping me if you want to know about that one. They're going to maintain administration on the first tower, right? Because they want that first tower looking good as they sell the second tower. So those first couple years, guys, are absolutely critical when it comes to homeowners association and getting started on the right foot. So you want your homeowners association that first year, once the residents become members of the board, that's actually fairly quickly, but then you hire a third party or you keep the developer if they're willing to stay. You got to make sure to fix stuff early on, because then otherwise, logically, it becomes an issue. Even more so in Panama, where construction standards are all over the board. When you buy a resale, you can look back and say, all right, what's the homeowner association done in the last 5 years? What are they expecting to do? Versus, oh, it's brand new. Oh my gosh, we're already replacing our pool tiles. It's only been 12 months. You want another $500 from me? You will always have to contribute to the homeowner association. Usually it's 2 to 3 times your monthly payment. So it's like, all right, your homeowner association is $300 a month. Cool. You got to stroke a check for $900. Every single new owner has to make that initial contribution that uses the money to buy like furniture and like, golly, what do they do with that? That's kind of the main one, because some of these developers, they deliver a building and you're like two deck chairs for a giant pool. Come on, guys. We don't sell this developer stuff. Our developers generally deliver like all decked out and looking fab, tricked out gyms, really nice pools, but it's all over the board, right? So you don't know what you're going to get if you get in bed with some of these developers that have never done anything, or just look back what they've done in the last 4 projects. You can get an idea. If you don't know those 4 projects, talk to your agent. If you need a good agent, talk to me and my people. So anyway, guys, I hope that's helpful. I could go on and on. I'm trying to do longer videos just to sort of get people comfortable with the environment, because the last thing I want, buy from whomever, love to use us. We'll guide you through the process. Stick around and make sure to do a good job. However, I don't like hearing about people getting burned. I don't like hearing about people, for example, getting these prospectuses today and then getting their building and they're like, no, or getting a render with like an all, I don't know, green social area and then getting the social area and it's like all blue and yellow. You're like, no. We like to work with developers where their renders match the final product. That's a big deal. So anyway, go on and on. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.